Next on Worcester News tonight, more snow is on its way, and while it may only be a few inches, the city is reminding people they still need to move their cars. Plus, the future of Kelley Square. We have an update on the renovation projects. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Botari. Worcester Roots holding a meeting tonight to discuss the potential for a community benefit agreement for the Worcester Red Sox ballpark project. The PNI Club in Worcester was packed as community members had the opportunity to listen to speakers from other cities who negotiated successful CBA agreements. John Washington is an expert in community benefit agreements. He says they want to make sure the $35 million in public dollars Worcester's receiving is actually going towards jobs, affordable housing, and efforts to help the existing community.
It's so important because we have an underemployed community as it is, so we need to be breaking down barriers, not setting up new ones, and there are ways in which if they are not thoughtful investments, these investments can bring in a new population that actually washes out the existing population of a neighborhood.
Board member of Worcester Roots, Howard Lucas, says they want to give community members a voice in the decision making and figure out ways and strategies of getting involved in terms of economic development.
Really be at the table to say, if you're going to do changes here, let's listen to us. We'll tell you what we need. It's not a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up approach.
This meeting comes less than a week after the first community benefit agreement was signed in Worcester between the YWCA and the Worcester Community Labor Coalition. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation revealing its 25% design plan for Worcester's Kelley Square during a meeting Wednesday night. MassDOT says the plans for the Kelley Square Improvement Project are based on extensive public input received at 3 prior public workshops, public information meetings, and written comments. MassDOT's Tom Emmerich says the input has helped as there are a lot of issues to work out all the way through the intersection. The hybrid roundabout shaped like a peanut is the first one they've done in District 3. Emmerich says there have been a lot of improvements since their 10% plan.
It's further developed, so it's lines on plans now. We're working on elevations. So there's a lot of engineering that goes into that, drainage, utilities. So there's a lot of different parts that we're adding, and as we develop it, they're more defined as we move forward to 75.
After tonight's presentation, they took more public comment to use for the next step of the project, which is the 75% plan. The Worcester Division of Public Health is one of 31 recipients nationwide to receive a federal grant to improve health equity in the city. The grant, awarded by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, gives Worcester $780,000 a year for 5 years. It will be put towards reducing health disparities among racial and ethnic populations with the highest amount of chronic disease. Latinos are the grant's priority population. And the goal is to use culturally tailored systematic interventions addressing things like access to care, poor nutrition, and physical activity.
Over and over again throughout all the data sources that are in our community health assessment, that Latinos are definitely marginalized by neighborhood characteristics, household resources, limited access to health care. This is really going to help us move the chip forward, but really in particular pay attention to the Latino community.
Worcester DPH Director Karen Clark says they hope to significantly improve some health outcomes for the Latino community, who make up 22% of the population in Worcester. Close to 3,000 cars have already been towed this winter, and with another parking ban in place, the number could rise. The city puts bans in place to help plows and first responders get through during storms, but both say with cars in the way, it makes their job more difficult. Our Brittany Schaefer has the story.
Dorenzo Towing and Recovery are gearing up for a busy night.
Anything that we do gets busier when the snow falls. As the road conditions decline, we escalate.
The company will be busy plowing snow, but they could also be towing cars. Dorenzo's Jim Cahill says they contract with the city of Worcester during winter parking bans, and the towing numbers are always high.
When parking bans go in effect, obviously our volume increases greatly during that period of time. Probably 8 tow vehicles in addition to our heavy wrecker and recovery equipment that are out there. As long as they're not paying attention, unfortunately, somebody's going to move them. And, you know, it's obviously at the request of the city and and the Worcester Police Department.
Police do go around with DPW and identify cars that they can't contact the owner and tow the cars.
The parking ban is in effect as of 6 p.m. Wednesday night. According to Worcester Police, more than 2,600 vehicles have been towed so far this winter. Lieutenant Sean Murtha says it makes plow drivers' jobs difficult and also impacts first responders.
I think the biggest thing is just if the plows can't do their job, then it makes it tougher for us because we have to get to addresses. If there's an emergency going on, we have to get there. So if there's a ton of snow, it's always tougher to do our jobs and can definitely delay response.
It's a public safety issue more than anything else. If the plows can keep the roads wide enough and open the way they need to be, first response and emergency response vehicles, it impedes their ability to do the job they need to do.
Last year, the city towed more than 3,000 cars. Murtha says this year is looking similar with likely more snow on the way. In downtown Worcester, Brittany Schaefer, Worcester News Tonight.
A poster recently removed by students at Abby Kelley Foster Charter School is now hanging back up. The students removed the poster of Colin Kaepernick after some took offense to the painting. Students told us the poster was put up as part of a Black History Month celebration, but some felt Kaepernick was associated with police brutality. The poster is now back in its spot after an open dialogue between students and administrators. Proposed state legislation would ban organized tackle football through the 7th grade. Some research shows players who start playing before the age of 12 may suffer from memory loss and depression. But other doctors say banning the whole sport together may not be necessary. Our Chandler Walsh has the story.
Defensive coordinator Derek Robbins runs an off-season weight session for West Boylston High School football. He says almost all of his team played youth football, and they need it to play the game safely.
They need to learn all of the full contact activity that goes on in the game. And if they don't get that at a young age, they're certainly going to be in a tough situation showing up here as freshmen.
A proposed bill would ban tackle football in Massachusetts for children in grades 7 and below. Any team or league in violation would be fined.
I understand the need to have a conversation about collision sports in general, but that's not what's happening here. They're targeting one sport and one sport alone.
The bill, also called the No Hits Act, is based on research of long-term consequences from repetitive head impacts while the brain is still developing. Co-sponsor Representative Paul Schmid says, as always, we want to come back to the guiding principle here, and that is what is right for our kids. UMass Memorial Dr. Theodore Macknow says repeat concussions increase the risk of suffering another.
Some data that, with repeated head injuries throughout your life can lead to this chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is what's all over the news these days in these NFL players. It is not well figured out sort of how many hits you need.
Macknow says head injury awareness is important, but banning a sport may not be the way to go.
Maybe for that kid, the smaller, the small risk of head injury pales in comparison to the teamwork, the stick-to-itiveness, the exercise skills.
Robbins says rule changes and a better understanding of concussions have already made the game safer.
Certain drills that were being, done when I was playing back in the 80s and early 90s have been outlawed.
One Central Mass state rep signed the bill. Representative Kimberly Ferguson says she's taking input from citizens into consideration and consulting with medical experts. There's an online petition against the bill with more than 7,000 signatures. In the newsroom, Chandler Walsh, Worcester News Tonight.
Gloucester police are warning parents about a frightening game kids are playing online. It's called the MoMo Challenge, and it encourages kids to do a series of bizarre and sometimes extremely dangerous tasks. Abby Nisgoda has more on what parents need to know.
I was up till 4 a.m, researching this because I was so freaked out by it.
A mother of 2 living in Lowell, Tasha Kenny is constantly monitoring what her kids are watching, but she says her 10-year-old son never told her he recently saw something terrifying while consuming kid-friendly content until she asked him about it.
I said, Evan, do you know who this is? And he was like, don't show me, don't show me. And he knew exactly who it was. He's seen it before.
She's talking about MoMo, a scary avatar behind a disturbing digital game that's spreading through online apps across the country and targeting children. It challenges them to perform violent acts and even harm or kill themselves.
Momo's like, if you don't do this, I'm going to come and kill you in your sleep.
Fortunately, Kenny's son ignored the instructions, but Stephanie Croto in Springfield says she found them scribbled on papers in her daughter's backpack.
She didn't want to go to the bathroom alone. She didn't want to go to bed alone. She didn't want to go in the kitchen.
How widespread the MoMo challenge is up for debate, but it's prompted Gloucester police to put out an alert to parents.
So keep your eye out.
Kenny has taken matters into her own hands, putting the word out on her own social media.
I had a boatload of parents messaging me saying, this happened to my child.
She says that's all the proof she needs that MoMo isn't a hoax, but the name of a game every parent should know.
They need to realize it's happening right here.
YouTube actually just put out a statement about this, saying they've yet to find any recent evidence of videos promoting the MoMo challenge, but if you're at home and you happen to see one, they'd like you to flag that video. In Gloucester, I'm Abby Nesgo to NBC 10 Boston.